Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Karen Egan. I'm one of the technical advisors here at ILM and City and Guilds. Before we start, can I just make sure that everyone can hear me? Perhaps put something in the chat. Okay, Dom, I'm not getting anything. Are you getting anything in the chat so people can...
Yes,
That's not a good sign.
Yes, everyone, I can hear you. Yes, you can hear. That's fab. Thank you very much, everybody.
Lovely, thank you for that. So welcome everyone. As you come to expect, we are working from home. So I have just closed the door so that when my lovely Labrador starts barking at the postman, you won't hear him, but you might just be hearing a whisper in the background. So apologies for that, but as I'm sure you're aware, this is our live at the moment. You're all on mute, but obviously we want to make this as intimate to responding to you as soon as possible afterwards. We will, of course, share with you following the webinar, so you don't need to make copious notes here. Also, when you exit the webinar, there'll be a short survey, and we'd be grateful if you could just give it a couple of minutes to just complete that, and we can do my colleagues. Dom, if we could have the next slide. So we work under the ILM brand, if you like, but obviously for this T-level, it actually crosses over the brand of City and Guilds and ILM. So we work very closely with Don Green, who's also on the call today, as I should say that Jill's with us today as well. And Dom is the technical advisor for business. So between us, we have the specialist knowledge to support the T-level for management and admin. Alison Whittle is our technical advisor for post 16, working very closely with a lot of the higher education institutions, so universities across England. She's not with us today because we haven't got an HE focus, but she has been doing a lot of work around that sort of HEI and progression area, and we will bring her into future webinars into 2022. So in previous webinars, we've talked about the T-level as a whole. And at the last webinar, we talked about the technical qualification, or the TQ for short. And this slide represents really the T-level as a whole. But this morning, we are going to focus on the dark blue area that you can see on the slide there, which is the core. So we're going to be looking at the content of the core and the assessment of the core. What I think the best thing to do now would be hand over to Jill, who will just take us into a little more detail around the core. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. So you can see there the components of the core that we're going to go into more detail about today. The weighting for the core and the occupational specialisms is 50% each. And you can see that they're graded, the core A star to E and the occupational specialism pass merit distinction. So current thinking is that the external assessments, so the core exams and the employer set project, will be assessed in the first year and the occupational specialisms in the second. We did consider there being a 40-60 weighting, but that was rejected through the feedback, so as to avoid unacceptable emphasis on a particular occupational specialism, so to keep it nice and neat to a 50-50 split. And the split in terms of the components of the core, you can see there in red. So each of the core papers is 30% of that 50%, and the employer set project is 40%. Could I have the next slide, please, Dom? So this is just a reminder of the topic areas there. So the 7 key areas covered by the core, the business context, the people, the quality and compliance, finance, policies and procedures, project and change management, and then those business behaviours. Could I have the next slide? So this slide just shows you how the topic areas have been split across the 2 papers, and it shows you the guided learning hours allocated to each. And I'll talk to you a bit more about the rationale for that split in a moment. So if I just talk you through the core exam, so classed as 1 exam, but split over 2 papers. And so each paper will have 100 marks allocated to it. It will be each 2.5 hours long, be weighted, as I've already said, at 30% of the overall core grade. It will be set by us, it'll be externally set and externally marked. And it's obviously based around the detail of that test specification and the assessment grids associated with it, so that that will support the sampling, the marking of it. And they will both need to be sat in the same assessment window, so they're classed as 1 exam but across 2 papers. So in terms, as I said, about the rationale and the split between the 2 papers, there's a relatively small number of overall outcomes. There's only 7 outcomes in the M&A core. So to cover the breadth and the depth of the knowledge and understanding, there's obviously a significant amount of content to be sampled in that core exam. So the experts, the subject matter experts and the panels that we use, they were asked to consider a range of options for covering those 7 outcomes, including, you know, maybe having 1 single exam paper or a couple of different exam papers of different sizes. So a single paper would be sort of worth 120 to 140 marks. But actually, in the end, they made the decision, and there was a lot of to-ing and fro-ing, but they made the decision that the proposed structure was the best way forward in order to reflect that overall breadth and depth, and that need to allow, you know, enough marks available for each section to really acknowledge that depth and breadth, and also to support sort of manageability and access to the 2 assessments. So 2.5 papers was considered to be more manageable for the students at that level than a larger single longer examination. Could I have the next slide, please, Dom? I'm thinking about how those 2 papers would be split in terms of the content. The subject matter expert panels and the employers and the providers that we work with to validate, they looked at the links between the subjects, the content that I showed you before on the previous slide. And so they decided that there should be 2 focuses through the 2 exams. So paper 1 focuses on the overall context of business and business people, and paper 2 focuses primarily on the inner workings of the business, how it functions, how it operates. So in sections 1 and 2, so the business and its people of the core content sit alongside the section 7 in paper 1, which is about the development of the people. So it links into the development of the people. So that's why 1, 2 and 7 came together as 1 paper. And then they considered that there was significant link and fit between sections 3 and 6 to put those into the second paper, which focuses on the workings of the organisation. So that was the rationale, that was how they came about deciding on the way that the 2 papers would be split down. So as well as considering the content split based on the overall purpose, they also had to consider the content balance, how big the overall size of each section were that would be covered by each exam. And as you can see there, the final allocated hours, what is considered to provide a good indicator to the learner, to the tutors, about the content split, the size and the emphasis on each paper to make sure that that is appropriate. And if I could just have the next slide, please. This is about the way that we decided about the marking approach. So defined mark schemes are being developed for each paper, and they will be point-based for the short answer responses, so targeting the knowledge, the assessment outcomes 1 and 2, so the knowledge and the understanding. But then they'll also include a greater use of response style mark schemes to look at the quality of the response as well. So there'll be a mixture there between points-based and response style, where they're not just a short answer, but a longer quality answer there. And we will be giving through those mark schemes as much guidance as possible to be able to support the consistent and reliable assessment of that and sampling of that. So, for example, to that end, our mark schemes will minimise the use of carrier language, that teacher interpretation, that language that they might use to explain. It'll really define the mark scheme. Avoid the use of model type answer approaches so that doesn't become an issue for people. And we'll also be providing guidance on unacceptable types of responses. So lots of guidance there in that marking approach through those mark schemes. Okay, I'm going to pass you over to Dom. Thanks, Dom.
Thank you, Jill. So I'm just going to have a brief look now at the second part of the core, which is the employer set project. So the employer set project, then, it needs to basically ensure that students have the opportunity to combine what Jill was talking about, so the knowledge and skills, in order to really develop a substantial piece of work, which would be in response to a set brief. The employer set project does form part of the TQ, the technical qualification. However, it is a separate part to the industry placement part of the T level, and we really must stress that and reiterate that there is obviously an industry placement that each learner would carry out of a minimum 45 days, or equivalent in hours. But the employer set project then is not directly linked to the industry placement itself. It's not set by the industry placement, it's set by us, the awarding organisation, City and Guilds, and there is often some confusion there because of the terminology. So employer set project is set by City and Guilds and not by the industry placement that the learner has. So on to the finer details then. The employer set project again is contains 100 marks. The duration of the ESP is 25 hours, and like Jill mentioned previously, it makes up that final 40% of the overall core grade. So the good news for centres is that the employer set project is externally set, it's externally marked, and it is moderated by City and Guilds. Within the project, individual tasks are matched to the assessment objectives, which you can see within the specification, and marks have been allocated and set against specific tasks, which each reflect those assessment objectives and their weightings accordingly. Like Jill said previously, mark schemes with band descriptors will be used for marking purposes. And essentially that project will provide an opportunity for learners to demonstrate the core skills, knowledge, but also for them to demonstrate their ability in maths and English if needed. So the rationale behind the employer set project. As part of the development approach, we held 2 initial workshops with a total of 12 employers to understand their thoughts on types of scenarios which would be applicable for the employer set project, and really looking at the ways to best demonstrate how the learners can best demonstrate the core skills which would reflect valid work tasks. So these specific workshops that we conducted have supported obviously the development of a project brief, and the project brief will offer opportunities for students to engage with that's not limited to a single industry area or that demonstrates bias to any one occupational specialism. So it will not show bias at all to any one of the 3 occupational specialisms. It will be generic as far as an ESP is concerned. It will provide scope within the tasks to cover all of the core skills, and it will include assessment objective weightings that reflect the importance of the planning elements of the project in this sector as well. Now, with relation to funding bands of the TQ, so T levels will include more teaching hours and be more prescriptive in the content than other study programs that you currently may offer. So that table there illustrates the average and minimum planned hours of the management and admin pathway. It also shows there the funding rates for each band. Now, the management and admin pathway does fall into band 7, which is classed as a medium T level. So you can therefore see that the funding rate over 2 years for this particular pathway is £10,122 per learner, which is quite a considerable amount with regard to funding. So what I'm going to do now is pass back to Karen, who's just going to give a brief reminder of the resources on offer.
Thanks, Dom. And you managed to struggle through. I thought your broadband was going to go there for a second because it started crackling, but it settled down a bit. So thank goodness for that. So just want to take you through what's coming soon, really. So we've got our next webinar. So more specialisms. So the link there is there. It's already open to people to book on to. So if you want to come and join us for that one, then when you get the slides, you'll be able to click the link and book on. It's worth saying that even if you're not available at that time on the 11th of January, I think it's another 10 o'clock start. Please do book, because we will send you the recording and the slides out as a non-attendee as well. So so I thought it would be worth sharing that with you. So so the technical qualification is signed off now, and thank you for everyone that was involved in supporting us with that. But obviously that's not the end of our journey in terms of the support materials that we're going to be offering. We're currently working, sorry, you can probably hear my dog barking in the next room, apologies. I'm working currently in the guide standard exemplification materials, GSEM for short, and that's to sort of really help you as providers to understand the expectations in terms of the assessments. So our journey is still continuing with that, and as we move more into your curriculum planning time, we'll offer support for this in terms of workshops for the core and the occupational specialisms as well, around that teaching and learning support for you, so that you feel as prepared as you can be for anything new. We always feel, you know, that sort of scariness about just before we step into anything completely new, don't we? So but we are here to work with you and guide you all the way. So I think can we have the next slide? That's it. So there's lots already available on our website, and so this one gives you some sort of quick shortcuts really to to what's already available on the website, and it's replicated on the ILM website as well. So these are actually links to the City and Guilds site, but all of this information is also on the ILM website, because one of the specialisms is team leader. So you've got there a learner flyer, which you know, if you want to help, well, it's there. We've produced a learner of the record. We've got a calendar of how we're in the next 12 months. So you'll be able to see, you know, how we're ramping up the support for you as you get nearer to actual delivery. But obviously the specification for the technical qualification is there, and obviously our guide to HE. So all of that's already available. Dom, are you a real, you know, delay? Maybe we're but obviously there's a lot of part of their driving T-levels on there, but this the title of this slide here is actually a link. So if you want to have a look at yeah, Dom is pointing to it now with his little hand there to see, and that will take you to the DFE's website, where there's a whole range of supporting information that's available for you. So so lots of support out there for you. And can we have the next slide? So thank you, Dom. I can't see the chat.
If anybody's holding any of people stating that they can hear us, which is great from earlier on. If anyone's got any specific questions, please feel free to type them into the question bank now.
Do you know, I think, Dom, as these webinars get closer and closer to the go live date, then the questions will start ramping up, I'm sure. But it's all just
a publisher who are going to develop a textbook for the core, and that hopefully should be produced by January 2023. We appreciate that that is slightly behind the September start, but we are working with the publications company to get that released as soon as possible, and it will be for the core elements. Of course, City and Guilds will be producing schemes of work, lesson plans, worksheets, activities, etc. to support you, which will be available from excuse me, from September onwards, which they will be available for free for each provider. Charlotte's mentioned will there be a summer sit for the exam as well as January, February. That's something that we need to look at, and what we'll do is get back to you as well, Charlotte, with that.
Is that for a resit or just a?
It doesn't state, but we'll find out from Stephen in our development team, and put frequently asked questions out there for you all to access on the T-levels webpage. Sorry. So what we'll do is we'll confirm the core exams. Caroline mentioned previously, will that be assessed? So we'll frequently asked questions document, and we'll pop them on our website on
the specification around theories for the core exam to 23.
Okay.
For them in November, for the first time in November.
That's great. That does give rather than like Caroline has pointed out, January would be very early to content after just 5 months, and May, June is a lot more.
Yeah, the date is out yet.
There is another question from Matthew, who will be which bring together local providers with the LEPs, and as a GDPR, it's not a simple details in the country to see if we can involve you with the likes of ETF now, and we will, which is after Christmas. And
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.